So this is, I believe, this is our second doctor in a row. Dr.
That is
Andy
true.
Chen. Yeah, we're honored to have you, brother.
Appreciate you guys having me on, man. Glad we can make it work.
Yeah. I mean, how many times do we have to reschedule? I wasn't actually aware. Was it a couple of times?
Handful of times, but
My bad.
no worries.
So you're in Queens, right?
Yeah, in Queens, New York.
Awesome, man. So how did you become, or what led you to becoming a physical therapist?
Yeah, so physical therapy, honestly, like school and all that stuff was never really a thing for me. Like I just never was good at school, no matter how hard I tried. Like I failed gym class because I just couldn't bring my clothes to gym class.
Yeah.
But I was fucking around for a long time, probably up until like senior year of college. I don't even know how I made it to college. And I got injured. We were at some trampoline park and, you're just jumping around, doing a bunch of stuff, flipping. And then the next day I woke up and like, I could barely feel my right arm and I was having insane back pain and neck pain.
Yeah.
And I couldn't at that time even take like a plate 135 off the bench without my arm like killing me. So I went to go see a physical therapist, and it was like one of the most crazy healthcare experiences because like, you go to a healthcare provider, they don't give you any attention at all. Just ask you a couple of questions, give you something, and it's like you're on your way. But it was like the first time ever in my life where I was like, holy crap, this person actually cares about me and wants me to get better. And when she saw me get better, she was genuinely happy for my progress. So I was like, I think this is what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, at that time, I had like a 2.5 GPA. And I was like, I got to change things around to get into PT school.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed, like coming from outside the US into the US, and you see it permeate into college athletics, probably not the pros as much, but certainly in college. And I'm wondering if this is a reflection of the US education system. It seems that ATCs in physical therapy, they really focus on passive modalities. I think one, because they're scalable, like you can have 20 people have an ice pack or some stim at once. And then also it's like laziness. But would you agree with that? Like,
it's the system's kind of fucked up, right? In the sense that reimbursements rates keep dropping. So in order to keep the lights on, you have to have more productivity. If you have more productivity, then you're just not going to be able to help everyone the way you want to. So you've got to kind of set up a system where people don't get, I mean, they do get worse, but you kind of have to set a system where you're not hurting anyone. So it's like, all right, they come in, if you have a lower body injury, you're going to go on a bike. If you have an upper body injury, you're going to do that little upper arm bike thing. And then you go in some heat. You got your core 3 stretches, your core 3 strength exercises. Then you throw a ice pack on it. And then you just teach the high school intern what the 3 exercises and stretches are. And you just rinse and repeat, 4 people in and out every hour. So that's kind of what the model is right now.
Do you think your experiences kind of diverted you away from that path? Because it's fair to say, like, that's not how you approach things, right?
No, for sure. One of my internships, I was in Atlanta. And I remember within like an hour time frame, I had this one guy that was dealing with like chronic thoracic outlet and cervical radiculopathy symptoms. Another kid recovering from cancer. And I had a lady dealing with like low back pain within the same hour. So I was just like, I know the protocol that we already had was just not going to work. And I needed like time to talk with everybody. And you essentially get to the point where it's like you do the same treatment plan 3 times a week for the next 6 to 8 weeks. And you know that shit's not going to work. And then they just end up telling you, sorry, you failed physical therapy. Let's, discuss another surgery. And that's kind of where it's like, you realize like, holy shit, you got to do things differently, not from a monetary standpoint, but just to be able to serve people better.
I mean, were you always a lifter? Because it's fair to say, like, people could mistake you for a strength coach rather than a physical therapist. Like, you don't fit that kind of like negative stereotype of being a physical therapist with, TheraBand and, Bozus and whatnot.
No, it started like senior of high school. I was like, right now I'm like 160, but senior high school was like 115. And I used to gamble a lot in high school, and we were just at the pool hall, and my friend was like, every push-up that you can do, I'm going to do twice the amount. I'm like, let's put $20 on it. I bust out like 18 push-ups and I'm fucking dying. And then my friend takes like 50 push-ups easy. And I was like, fuck. So I got to start working out. Senior year of high school, I'm like, let's join a bodybuilding contest. Like our high school hosted one every year at the end of the year. So I bulked up to like 145, cut down to 135, and like a shredded upper body and no legs at all because I never squatted. And that's kind of how I started getting into like strength training. But back then it was like, I was just reading like T Nation articles. That's the only source we had.
Yeah. So was it like you put together your clinical education and background together with the lifting that interested you, or you actually went down an educational and clinical path where the lifting was a major piece of that?
I think it just kind of hit a point. Like, I think first year of physical therapy school, I had an injury while having back pain.
Yeah.
While deadlifting, and I started getting back pain. And I was like, all right, well, let's go see what this school clinic's about. And they just told me a bunch of stuff, how I'm like hypermobile here, hypomobile there. And like, I need to adjust my spine and move like certain parts of the spine. And I'm just like, how the hell are you going to detect this under like this thick of skin and all these things happening? Then I just stuck around to hear like other narratives. And this one girl came in. I remember she was having like back pain with squats, and the professor's like, oh, your rib's out of place. And I'm just like, this shit does not make sense. You know, how can we adjust something so precisely, but when an NFL player gets tackled, you know, their spine is not falling out or like just exploding, because the amount of impact, the amount of thrust that we're putting into these manual therapy techniques is significantly less than like things like boxing, you know, or MMA, where the strikes are just so, you know, powerful. Why would the body just not disintegrate? So once I started realizing, I'm like, this just doesn't even meet common sense. Yeah. And I got to the point, like my background is like reading into a lot of like the pain science. So coming out of school, I'm just like, all right, everyone's going to squat, bench, and deadlift. And it's all right. Pain's all in your head, just load it. And then you start to develop more nuances like, all right, well, squatting, benching, and deadlifting doesn't help someone necessarily get back to sprinting. So let's start to learn more about, you know, plyos and more locomotor activities. And whenever I hit a wall, it's like, all right, let's figure out how to move around this wall, opposed to just trying the same shit all the time.
That, you know, I'm keen to get your thoughts on it, your input. One of I've bumped into, well, in fact, there's a lot of different things. Like there are certain things where you hear the arguments and you're like, that doesn't really make sense, but then you see people do it and they seem to get relief from it. So like PRI is one of them, and we spoke to David Gray about that. And another individual that I've read a lot about is Guy Voyer and El Doa. But you mentioned it, it's like, oh, you know, if you sit in this certain posture, you can elongate tissues from different ends, you can create structural changes in fascia. And I'm like, this is the tissue that has the tensile strength of steel. Like, how is you like sitting upright going to create changes? What do you think about that?
I think it's one, like certain things just work better if you believe it works better, you know? Like I had a company send me like their green powder, and I've been posting them, and someone's like, yo, how's that supplement working for you? You feel better? I'm like, honestly, I'm drinking something green, so it feels like I'm healthier, but nothing crazy. Yeah. You know, a lot of these like modalities, if there's no way to falsify it, chances are you just got to go with what you believe. You know, if you can't falsify it, we can't truly figure out if it's working or not. But I think if you distill things into like first principles and try to figure out what someone's doing, like in a lens of like PRI and doing a lot of table tests, that might be really good for someone that needs more constraints with their movements, because so many of their movements are sensitive.
Yeah.
But when someone's like pretty well, you know, developed from a fitness standpoint, and there's probably like a tissue tolerance, like, you know, there's an insult to the tissue, a high grade sprain or strain level, you probably need to just strain them, get them back. You're just missing the boat if we're focusing on a diaphragm, and they need to get back to a sport that's high impact, and their mechanism of injury is something of high impact, not like a chronic pain or a high stress kind of mechanism of injury. And that's still some gray area, because we can't even really call that the mechanism of injury.
Yeah. So, I mean, you go ahead, bro. Yeah.
I was going to say that, you know, even though the placebo effect is like well documented and stuff, I think we always need to look at, you know, the bigger picture. So is the placebo, you know, potential the core of everything you're doing, or is it something that it's harmless and, it might help you with buying or convincing someone and it doesn't hurt, but you have a solid base of, the work and the understanding. And even if it's like, you know, you're not really telling your patient everything or how it works, but the big rocks are there, because joining that with the scalability and the treatment between patients is people tend to actually go for the magical solution. They don't really question that much. They don't really do what you do. And Gen Pop usually does that unless they're going through something like tragic themselves. So as you started, or I started myself, it was recurrent injuries, doing everything I was told for people that were actually in goodwill, but whatever worked as a mold didn't work for me, and that spiked curiosity and stuff. But rounding up, the common sense is not that common, or it's not as common as it should be. So yeah, you're drinking green stuff. Does it make you better? Does it make you worse? Worse, definitely not. You feel great, fine, but you surely exercise and work out and read and probably have healthy relationships and or a balance of all those, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think it just comes with like, what's the side effects of doing something, right? And what are the expectations? Like, I'm not drinking this, green drink in expectations that it's going to change all my outcomes. I'm just drinking it because they send it to me, it's free, and I'm like giving it a shot. In a context of like rehab, like certain things might make you feel better, but if your goals have a certain physical demand to it, and it never truly scaled you to that demand, I can't expect you to get better. I always say, like, if rehab is easier than training, then how do you expect to get back to training? You just won't.
I mean, to my shame, I outed myself the other day. My girlfriend is actually a GOTA practitioner. And this is the thing, which, she, N=1, like her background is, I had an ACL tear. And when I started moving like this and training like this, I felt so much better. I was like, yeah, you stop fucking grinding your joints. Like, if you're a football player and you're getting pounded week after week, and then you're doing cleans and squats and stuff like that, if somebody suddenly tells you like, oh, stop doing all that stuff and completely deload your body and move slowly like this, it's like, you're going to feel better. But like you said, where's the resistance to load? Like, you're trying to prepare athletes for this high force, high speed activity. I feel like they feel better in the interim, but then the seeds of pain and problems are just being planted for later. Like, there was a guy that they love to hang their hat on in the NFL who tore his Achilles the other week. And I'm like, yeah, that's what happens.
That's just when you think about it logically, it's like, one, we can't control for everything. Like, shit just happens.
Yeah.
And that's one thing we just have to realize is, like, you don't really know, like, you can have a bunch of KPIs to figure out when someone's ready, but the only KPI that really matters is if they actually do the thing and they're on the field. And even then, that's a little bit, risky, and you can't account for all these factors. But when it comes to like these, even like PRI, for instance, like, there's been times when I started implementing some breathing drills and I wasn't even coaching it right. And then I was still getting pretty good outcomes, probably because they were just relaxing, you know what I mean? Kind of like what you said, we down-regulated something, then we introduced some training and they felt better. Likewise with like all of these different movement systems where it's like, you have to supinate. That might really work well from someone that might be biasing pronation for a lot of their activities. Likewise, like when people just demonize movements, there's going to be someone that benefits from that school of thought. But what they never consider is like, who doesn't benefit and how can we update our framework or our processes? But it's like survivorship bias. You're just going to remember who you help and not who you don't.
Well, like even if like many roads lead to Rome and whatnot, and I'm just going to risk it and go to the deep end of like thought and whatever. But, usually our thoughts and our actions are very linked to our feelings and our identity. So if someone says, try something, and they may not understand the rationale, it might not be their job, but it saves their career, or they perceive it saves their career, they will probably, feed on the arguments that sort of support what they feel is good for them and protects who they are. And sometimes, even if it just happens in a split of a second, going against an idea with logic that it's linked to feelings, you're not going to change that. Because, the end of the day is, I found this that saved my life, even if, my understanding of it is wrong, just prove me wrong. Like, everything else I was doing was just, breaking my knees or ending my career, which meant not feeding my family and, whatever. So, the roots of that for people like you, good practitioners, or Kia does it the other way through memes and unrefutable logic, but it is like challenging beliefs at the end of the day. And you know, people don't go every day on the deep end of their soul to reach out what they're doing. It's best for them to just be like, cool, got it.
But that'd be Ben Patrick, you know, was he? I think he's got like, I don't know. Last time I heard it was 5,000 plus people paying him $50 a month. If you only have a 1% strike rate, that's, you know, 50 testimonials. There could be, you know, 4,950 people that you've completely fucked. But it's like, yeah, you have to consider the invisible graveyard. But you know, like, so if we're talking about beliefs, what are, given your kind of like interest in pain, what do you think there are some common misconceptions about how we look at pain in the general population in athletics?
I think like it's kind of different. Like with Americans, it's like pain is like, shit, let me just do something to get rid of this pain. And I work with a lot of European people throughout the years, and European people are like super chill. They'll wait until like it's been like years. It's like, you know, been having this back pain for
specialized medicine. That's why you have to get used to waiting.
That we do. Our Latin people do the same thing. It's just like, you know, you can't almost like not see my limb, so it's fine until I cannot stand and be like, oh, there's an issue.
Yeah, I had this one guy. I remember I was working in a hospital. He had like he was hiking and then got like a severe fracture because he fell down one of the hiking. What is it? It was like we're in forest areas, but the guy created a splint for himself. He tied his shirt and put like 2 pieces of plank wood or something he found locally. And then like he had someone help him back to his car. And then he's like, figured this thing wouldn't last that long. So I'm here to, you know, just get it surgically repaired and stuff. And this guy was so nonchalant about it. Whereas Americans would be like, I need something right now and stuff. But I think like my rule of thumb for myself is like, if I experience something, I got to give it 2 to 3 weeks and just see what happens. Because you can become a hypochondriac really easy by just being so aware of everything that's happening in your body. And most of the time, a lot of these things will just go away on its own. And I always give the analogy of like, let's say you experience back pain, but that back pain was going to go away on a 10th day. You can do anything on that 9th day and you're going to relate it to back pain. You can eat Chipotle, you can slap yourself with a fish, and now it's a magical fish. You know, it's like you can do anything on that 9th day. And then that's how these narratives are created. Like, oh, well, it worked for me. It's like, oh, well, how repeatable is that? And that's kind of like where I think most people now are like, oh, a friend told me to try this and it worked for her. And then they just end up trying a bunch of crap instead of like settling for something that's more of a long-term solution. So much of like our beliefs and everything now are shaped by like who we hang out with, society, and growing up. And I have so many people that come in. It's like, yeah, you know, I got to get a knee replacement soon because I got bad knees that run in the family. And the only thing that runs in your family is lack of physical activity and squats. You know, like you got to do something else.
You know, my dad just had a hip replacement, and he's like, oh, this is because I had osteomyelitis when I was a baby in 1954. And I'm like, dude, you're 270 pounds and you don't fucking exercise. Like, that's probably why your hip is a piece of shit. Those are the genes I'm fighting there. So yeah, I mean, do you think are you making a conscious effort that although you're guiding people towards sensible stuff, the basics, like a well thought out model with regard to pain, are you making a conscious effort though about the story that you tell, how you structure their beliefs, like how they're thinking mentally about what it is they're doing?
I don't think so, honestly. Like, this is one thing I'll tell like a lot of clinicians. I'm like, I never give someone the pain talk. You know, I just understand that like if someone, I always give this example, like, let's say you get an MRI report from a surgeon. Surgeon can give you 2 different responses. Hey, you know, you got a rotator cuff there, but these things are easily manageable. You can actually see a physical therapist, improve strength, and you'll be good. The other response could be like, wow, this is the worst rotator cuff tear I've ever seen in the career of my life. And think about the pain response that happens within each side. So it's kind of like, hey, listen, in the physical therapy lens, like maybe someone's hip mobility is related to the anterior pelvic tilt. Instead of saying that, you know, like, hey, your pelvis is really rotated forwards and you're shoving yourself forwards and you're lacking hip mobility and this is causing all these problems. You can just say, hey, You just kind of have these patterns of movement that are predisposing you to moving in a particular way that limits your mobility here, and that's causing problems. But we got a couple of things we can do to address that, and then we'll scale your training to meet the demands of your goals. So for me, it's like, I'm not trying to make sure people that leave the gym or the clinic that they understand everything about pain, that back pain doesn't equal posture. There's people that leave the clinic that still believe posture is related to their back pain, and I'm cool with that, because I can't change all of that. That's something they just got to learn from themselves. Maybe they got to get exposed to it 8 times from different people. I just care about making sure that the person in front of me actually enjoys our session. They understand the plan and how we're going to get them back to doing the things they love. And sometimes we don't get rid of all the false narratives, but I don't think you truly have to.
Yeah. I always tell athletes, like, if they're kind of on the fence about getting imaging, I'm just like, bro, don't go down that road. It's like, nobody cares if the invisible man comes around to dinner. Like, you don't want to know what's going on there, because like you said, like, I think it's 75% of people have like either a disc, a labrum, a rotator cuff tear. Just like, if you're still functional, don't go down that road.
It's just not worth it. Like, there's just so much. And there's an orthopedic surgeon I work with, and this is the question he'll ask his clients when they ask about imaging. It's like, if something shows up on imaging, are you ready to get surgery? And they say no. It's like, all right, well, I don't think imaging is indicated, so let's just wait, which I think is right. Like, if you're not going to do anything about it, what's the point of having more information just to have more information?
And presumably those same orthos are incentivized to go down the route of surgery, right?
Yeah, I gotta, that's why, like, I only work with like a select few in New York City, and it's not like they have to send me business. I just know that they're sensible, surgeons and doctors. So I refer them business because I want the clients I work with to have a good opinion. Sometimes they just need to hear it from like a physician or a surgeon instead of a physical therapist. And likewise, like, I have a lot of trainers that refer clients to me because they just need to hear it from a PT. Like, yep, back pain's okay. Go back to your trainer, keep training with them.
With regard to your training stuff, you have this, it seems like you have like a strong emphasis on kettlebell training for yourself, at least. What kind of led to that? Because now that I'm starting to get into like next year is going to be late 30s. I'm definitely in my mid 30s. Oh, I start gravitating. Yeah. I mean, you're older than me. I started gravitating towards more kettlebell training just because it feels better. Do you think there's anything inherently different about kettlebell training? Because I know powerlifters like Donnie Thompson, I've spoken to him. He said that like bought him an extra X amount of years in his career.
I don't think there's anything like special. I think it's just like gotten to the point where around the time I started kettlebell training was around the time as a clinician, like, I had more demand. And I just couldn't do my 2-hour powerlifting sessions anymore because I just didn't have enough time. Whereas like kettlebell, you create an EMOM, and based on what you're trying to, what quality you're trying to develop, you just do that training for that day. And it's like a quick 20-30 minute training session. Whereas like when I was a powerlifter, like, I had to make sure I had my socks, my shoes, my knee sleeves, my wristbands, even though I was just squatting. I had to have my belt. And if I didn't have any of those, like, I'd be fucked. So it's just like a matter of, for me, the convenience of kettlebell training. And my goals just changed because I used to want to just get stronger, but I felt like crap powerlifting. And then once I got into kettlebells, it's kind of when I started introducing more like sprinting stuff, more plyometrics, and I just felt better in my body.
Yeah.
I mean, so I was going to say that due to COVID, it was the only type of equipment I could afford or fit in a small flat. And I kind of felt, and this is like a whole like thought process throughout the COVID, where we didn't have gyms, or some guys I was training had gyms and some others had field. So I feel like these sort of oddly shaped devices and some sort of movement give you strength and flexibility or whatever in different ranges of motion, that if you were, like moving a bar, it would just be like the same route, like up and down, straight forward, like not combining planes. And after moving that, it's just like guys that could easily push dumbbells, they were just struggling to hold the kettlebell like in the position or lift it up or grab it. So I mean, I like that. It just felt like it filled the cracks, like it just made like an all-round movement and just never took them out. I mean, not solely on it, because when you focus on performance, it might not help you reach out X amount of kilos or whatever device for jumping at whatnot. But I was like, why am I so weak with a kettlebell that weighs 20 kilos if I can do the same with a dumbbell? Like, it made no sense. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I just like, with me, I've realized as well, it's like the longer I train, the more I start gravitating towards training with stuff that's been around for hundreds or thousands of years, like
A towel,
Mace,
chin up.
clubs,
Yeah.
kettlebell training, ring training, stuff like that. I don't know if it's just like I'm bored of barbells and dumbbells, or that there is something that's inherently beneficial to that. But I do feel like as I get older, that stuff agrees with me more.
Yeah. Well, with kettlebells, there has to be something about weight distribution as well, right? Like, if you think about it,
yeah, maybe.
like, it make it easier to have a dumbbell that has 10 on each side and something in the middle and it's balanced. Whereas the kettlebell, like, if you sort of like mess up the grip, like the whole thing is concentrated in the one go and you go like, because it feels heavier. Or it's just me being crazy, like just pick up a kettlebell that's 20 kilos or a dumbbell.
It's like wrestling though. If you pick up, try and deadlift a human, it's really fucking different.
That's a better explanation. Yeah.
The one thing with kettlebells, I'll say, like, kind of what you're talking about is like, it's hard to kind of cheat it, right? Like when the form or technique looks terrible, it feels terrible too. Yeah. So it's kind of like, and the culture with kettlebell is like, before you even move up in weight, it's like, you really have to like own that 24 kilo before you bump up into like a 28 or a 32. So like during quarantine, I only had 24 and a 32, and that felt significantly different. So I was
That's a big jump.
Training with the 24 like crazy. Then it got to the 32 and it felt good. Whereas like traditional, means of training is like, if you can get more on the bar, just do it. Just put it out there.
Dude, I went from a 25-pound Mace. I bought one at home just like to get my elbows and my shoulders feeling a bit better, which it did help. And then I was at Exos a few weeks ago and I got a 30 pounds. So it's like a 5-pound increase. I could barely fucking swing the thing. It was disgusting how much harder it was. It was incredible.
I haven't played with maces and stuff like that before, but like, that's definitely, I've swung like Bulgarian bags, and that's something I want to get into because that thing is fun.
Yeah. The Mace is, I did Indian clubs when I worked at a team, 7 or 8 years ago, and I've dabbled. The Mace it looks similar. It's really, really weird though. I think that there is a skill to it, but I think there's something just like, you get that centrifugal force. I think that's the thing about maces and Indian clubs. It's like I don't know, you can correct me, dynamic stabilization, bit of centrifugal force, or that kind of stuff. And it just feels good. But yeah, I should have have you seen the Kabuki one where it's like, it's an adjustable one? Their equipment is awesome, but I'm too much of a cheapskate. So I just bought a fixed load.
High-end fitness, baby.
Yeah. So your business, when did you finish physical therapy school? Do you go straight into business?
No, I finished physical therapy school. I think that was 2019. Sorry, I had to give my dog a rawhide around 4 p.m. He gets pissed off if I don't give him any food or snacks. Finished physical therapy school is 2019. And then I was working for someone else for 2 years. And right about that 2-year mark, I decided to start my own business.
What was the impetus for that? Like, fed up of doing what other people told you, money?
I think the one thing is like autonomy. Like, I've always been someone that wanted to do my own thing and like have like that creative freedom with everything. Yeah. And eventually it just got to a point where, money is always gonna be in an equation, especially with like the amount of debt you come out of in school. Yeah. And then the other thing was just like, I realized that I wasn't happy going into work anymore. And like for a majority of my life, I feel like I've been an entrepreneur. I was that kid selling Pokemon cards, reselling Pokemon cards when I was young. Like I resold sneakers up until I graduated physical therapy school to the point where I had like $60,000 worth of sneakers in my parents' place.
God damn.
So when I was reselling sneakers, I was almost making more than a physical therapist at that time. Yeah. So it kind of didn't sit with me when I realized, I was like, man, like I could just be selling sneakers. I didn't have to rack up 150K in debt. But I mean, I love what I do. And for me, being passionate about it now, it's fun because like when you're selling sneakers, you can be making great money, but it's like, I'm not doing anything purposeful. Don't feel like I'm excited to get out of bed. But now it's like when you're working for yourself and you can do whatever you want and everything kind of falls on you, like it's scary, but it's fun too.
How do you approach the challenge of trying to scale something that's inherently unscalable?
I don't think I'm not taking it as like, I'm not trying to get big for the sake of getting big.
Yeah.
I think that's where most people fail. It's like, okay, we're good already. Let's get into a bigger space. Let's just keep moving the postmark and just getting into a bigger thing and keep doing things for the sake of doing them because it's kind of what society thinks they should do. For me, it's like right now, once we started in September, by December, my girlfriend and I were pretty much at full caseloads. And I was like, all right, the only way I'm going to hire someone is if I know that they're technically competent. I don't want to like waste months and months just training someone. So I was like, let me create a mentorship so that I can start to see like, you know, young talent, maybe see if someone wants a job. If not, I'm just going to teach people my framework and show them kind of what skills I've used to kind of get clients coming in and out of the door that really want your service and give people results they couldn't get anywhere else. And that's when I realized, I was like, wow, I sold out a mentorship in a day. And I was like, that's super scalable. Like there's no overhead there. So I've looked into that. And other things that we're going to start considering building out is just going to be like subscription-based training, because there's just a lot of, I mean, everyone's got a training program, right? And it's just a matter of like, if you're building your brand, someone's going to buy yours or someone else's. But there's enough for everyone to eat. So for me, I'm not trying to scale the physical therapy business. I kind of just let it happen more organically, right? I know that if we keep improving our skill set and making sure that everyone gets through the door, gets better, we'll have certain problems arise, but I'm not going to make a huge jump in overhead. I would rather just figure out strategic ways to do it and eventually just get myself out of the business and doing other stuff as well, where it's like the mentorship, where it's the monthly programming. And from there, you can do, I don't think I'll always be in physical therapy. Like I just have, I wouldn't mind getting into like housing stuff, investing. But that's where kind of where my family's in. Like my parents have done that and my oldest brother's done it, but just kind of diversifying somehow. But when that time comes.
Well, it sounds like, you know, even though the physical therapy stuff might not be scalable, that's almost your marketing and your promotion for the stuff that is. So I've seen it a couple of times in jiu-jitsu. There's the Marcelo Garcia gym in Manhattan where they pay a fortune in rent, but his online platform, it more than covers the rent. Like he makes more from the platform than he does from the gym, but then the gym is like, you can write it off because that's, you know, where you film everything. That's where your office is and stuff like that. So it's almost like you can afford to keep that the size it is to grow the other stuff, but you need both.
For sure, because I don't want to be like teaching people how I treat and work with clients if I'm not even doing it myself. You know what I mean? That's one thing that never sat right with me. And I'm just a true believer. Like I'm always going to try to learn more about the business side of things. But I think most of the people that get into business have a shitty product to begin with. Like all I care about is being world-class at what I do. And if I can be world-class at what I do, I can teach other people to do it as well. And that's a business in itself. I can treat people. That's a business in itself. I can, you know, I don't think writing books is possible, but there's money in writing books. There's just so many avenues to do things. And if you provide a ton of value and you're world-class at what you're doing, you just got to pick the avenue you want to and just go all in on it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned brand. Like, did you get any outside input on like how you present yourself on social media, or is that all you? Because obviously you can see there's real consistent themes as to what you do on social media. You have a really big following. I'm just curious as to how you came to that.
In the beginning, I think I got in pretty early. Like I was back in when they were doing the checks and X's, and I was still a physical therapy student. So I was just posting like, you know, fix your form and all that stuff. And that helped grow it a little bit. And then I kind of hit a pause where my growth wasn't as great, but I realized that it, you know, my follower count could be astronomical, but if none of them are actually converting followers, then what the hell is the point of increasing my follower count? So that's when I realized, like, you don't need 100,000 followers to have a business. You just need 30 people that believe in what you do, and 30 people that have 2 or 3 more friends that might need your service as well.
Yeah.
So for that part where I kind of stagnated a little bit, I just kind of posted content of like things that I was doing. It was more informative stuff, and it was helping the business a little bit. And then I kind of got back into like posting reels and just playing the game essentially. 'Cause I think I was getting too emotional with the content. So now it's like, yeah, I post things on TikTok, and I just repurpose what's coming from Instagram. I make long form content on YouTube, and I repurpose it on LinkedIn. Have someone running the LinkedIn, have people that create all of the content, and then I just keep throwing it out there. Ultimately, I just get inspired by like, what problems did I solve this week? And I'm going to make content around it. I use reels to get people as followers because it's the best for the algorithm. And then
trying to compete with TikTok. Yeah.
Same thing with TikTok. And then once a week, I'll post something that's a little bit more informative to show people that I'm more than just the top 3 exercises, but I have a thought process behind what I'm doing. And hopefully the more, I show people how I work, essentially it's just one giant funnel, right? Like TikTok and reels is just getting people through.
And you have like your long form content, then you have like lead magnets. Yeah. Very, very clever.
I read a couple of books about it, but I felt like intuitively, I just kind of came to that conclusion myself. Like, I'm not going to post long form content on TikTok. You gotta make content for the medium that you're using, and then think about who you're attracting, and then essentially just repurposing everything and linking everything. So you just get people into the ecosystem.
What's your growth model? Is it like mostly referral, word of mouth?
Right now, I'm trying to not make it just strictly word of mouth, but so much of it is word of mouth. The one thing that we're going to be launching now, I was actually working on it before this call, was creating an ebook. And just, I think most people just kind of make ebook like a sales pitch, but I wanted to create ebooks where I like show people exactly what we do in a clinic, what we're assessing, and how we might change something. So it's actually valuable. And then, getting emails and stuff like that. That's the one thing I'm working on more so now, is like, I've got 60,000 people on Instagram, but I need to get them into like an email. I need to get them in like some sort of
what, when you mention it, like unsolicited advice, I would say if you can do that as a video-based course or like mixed media course, I reckon you get way more opt-ins than an ebook. It's just I think it's like one of those value perceptions for us, because when we if you structure certain things and call it like a platform or a membership, in their mind they put X value on it. If you call it a course and then put a checklist and a quiz, suddenly you're like, oh fuck, I'll pay double for this.
No, I think that's actually a great, because for the mentorship, that's essentially what I was going to do. Is I was just going to do a free webinar and just like literally take one of my slide decks and just talk over it and like do a Q&A after. But I never even thought about doing that for like just a Gen Pop person coming in. It's like having the ebook and also the presentation, like a 2-for-1 that you can print and send out as well.
The way that I read it, I think someone told me once, it's like if you consider each medium as like what platform at the end of it would you most be okay with giving somebody money, or like going to the next stage of relationship, be like, if they wrote you a letter and said, oh, can I have $100, you'd be like, nah, fuck off. If they called you up on the phone and said, could I have $100, you'd be like, maybe. If they sent you a video or you did a video call, you'd be more likely. And if they came to your house face to face, said, please, can I have $100? It's like, oh, sorry, cancel this call. Yeah, like you're way more likely to convert them, like as you got the ladder of different forms of media.
No, that's one thing is I never talk pricing over like email or text. It's always got to be a phone call or in person.
Yeah.
I just find like when you send an email with like your pricing structure, on the opposite end, it's probably like, damn, that's a lot of money. Where it's like you're talking, it's like, oh yeah, I can see the value because I can hear your voice and I'm enjoying the conversation and stuff like that. But that's a great way to put it.
That's clever, man. So as we wrap up, where can people find you online? All those broken people.
Those broken people. Online, if you want to work with us, it's www.momentptp.com. And if you want to find me on Instagram, which is kind of where I'm most active, it's at dr.Andy Chen.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it?
You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.